Signal locked in. The target is marked, but the signal will not hold for long.
For it is he that they fear, not man, or his armies. They fear the mark of the beast.
Hey guys, this is Hayden from Neutron Insight, and today I'm going to be bringing you a review of Doom Eternal. So, this is the big, highly anticipated follow-up to Doom 2016, which is probably my favourite shooter so far this generation, to tell you the truth. I've been looking forward to this for a long time now. As we've got closer to release, I'm pretty sure my fiance has gotten a little sick of me talking to her about it. So anyway, it's here, I've played it, I've beat it on Ultra Nightmare mode, and I'm currently going through a Nightmare playthrough. And I think that I'm ready to review it, so let's go ahead and get started by looking at the graphics. Let's start by looking at art style then. So this, in my opinion, is a real step up from Doom 2016. It's quite impressive, really. So the environments are just more varied, the enemies are superbly designed. There's some callbacks there to some classic designs, such as the Arachnotron from Doom 2, etc. It looks great. The weapons look absolutely awesome as well. I dig the more gamey vibe this time around, and the game isn't afraid to show that it very much is a game. And that's something that Hugo Martin, the game director for Eternal, has hinted at in interviews, so I kind of expected this coming in. I can imagine it through maybe a few people who dug the more serious tone of Doom 2016, even though that was a bit silly as well. But yeah, it's really committed down a gamey path here, which I quite like, and I think that it's helped the game along in terms of its art style as well. In terms of how the game looks technically, it definitely looks great. It's sharper than 2016, but it's clear that the original game kind of pushed the boundaries visually already. I think the next gen hardware here is most certainly needed so that the next Doom can take a real big graphical leap, because Doom 2016 today still looks great, so that doesn't really surprise me, and looking at the previews going in, I kind of expected that. I think that the big difference here between the art style and how technically impressive the game looked, it's definitely the art style that's taken the biggest leap here. Like I said, it's that environmental variation, it's those extra enemies, that all works really well to kind of add that visual flair to the game that maybe Doom 2016 didn't have. But yeah, technically it looks fine, but it's not going to win any awards, I don't think, for that. One thing that I do kind of want to touch on technically, however, is the HDR performance of the game. So there is a HDR mode here, even on the PC version, and whilst it's pretty damn buggy at present, when it does work, it does make the game look considerably better. This broader color palette of the game lends itself really well to HDR, but like I kind of said, it doesn't work brilliantly right now. There's some issues with the map, which is practically invisible. It's just so dark in the HDR mode, and that still hasn't been fixed 3 months in, so I don't know quite what's going on there. But when you can get it to work and you kind of get used to those annoyances, like I said, the darker map and some really weird UI elements that come with it, the game looks considerably better. And I think that, technically speaking, is the biggest leap that Doom Eternal has taken from 2016. It's using that added color palette, it's pushing the boundaries in terms of brightness and highlight detail when it comes to HDR, to the point where that is the real technical gain here for the game. Before I step into how the game sounds and the gameplay, which is where this game really shines, I want to just quickly touch on the narrative. I know that from a Doom game's perspective, this isn't the most important part, and I completely agree with everybody who says that. The story acts as motivation for the Doomslayer to keep ripping and tearing. It's as simple as that. It's ultimately forgettable in this game in the same way that it was in Doom 2016, but it does its job well enough. You've got some third-person cutscenes in there, so id have most certainly done their job in terms of trying to make the game more serious in terms of its tone. They've tried to build that Doom universe, as they said during that QuakeCon reveal a few years back now. But yeah, the story's kind of forgettable. If you're here for the story, to tell you the truth, you should probably look elsewhere, but it does provide that motivation that the Doomslayer needs to just keep pushing forward, and that's pretty much all that the story ultimately serves. So let's move on to how the game sounds. I'm going to start with voice because in a similar way to story, it's fine, it's serviceable, it does its job, it serves its purpose, but it is a bit corny. It does fit with the style of the game. I mentioned during the graphical section that the gaminess is most certainly there as far as the voice goes as well. So yeah, like I said, serves its purpose, nothing special here. The most important parts are the sound effects and the music. So yeah, with the effects, it's quite a step up from 2016, and we know if you've played that game that 2016 already sounds pretty great. The weapon sounds, the demonic belches, etc., that's all very much improved in this game. The weapons, like I just mentioned, the step that they've taken is pretty outstanding. So I've always loved the sound of something like the Ghost Cannon charging up in the original Doom game, but that's been replaced by something like the Ballista in this game. The heavy cannon sounds a lot more impactful when you fire it. The glory kills with that Doom Blade, they sound absolutely amazing. So yeah, sound effects have taken a sizable step up this time around, and the sound design department from id can be very proud of what they've actually put together here. So good job there, guys. Let's just go ahead now though and move on to what a lot of people actually play the Doom games for outside of the gameplay, and that's the music. So Mick Gordon is back for this. He has once again produced an absolutely phenomenal soundtrack in this game. It is so raw, it is so strong, it really suits every ounce of the game. Though I will say that it can be a tiny bit inconsistent at times. The earlier levels, for the most part, don't have that really strong metal theme to them, and I can understand why that's done. It's a bit early, you don't have all the weapons, you're not fully kitted at that point. But there is a noticeably superior soundtrack in some levels compared to others. There's this one level called the Art Complex, and for those of you who have listened to the soundtrack, the most popular song is something called The Only Thing They Fear Is You, and that plays during this level, and it really elevates the level, in my opinion, to the best level in the game because of that. There's a bunch of other different soundtracks in there as well, such as when you're in the Slayer Gates, a song called Meat Hook plays, and yeah, in terms of the overall soundtrack quality, I would say that it is definitely better than the Doom 2016, despite the fact that BFG Division obviously still exists. But yeah, across the board, I'm really impressed with the soundtrack for the game. Mick Gordon's absolutely nailed it once again, and unfortunately, there's been a bit of drama with regards to id Software and Mick Gordon. Who to blame, who knows, quite frankly. I'd rather not take an opinion on it, but it is sad to say that Mick Gordon won't be composing the soundtrack for any further Doom games or DLC that we'll be releasing for Doom Eternal, so that's a shame. But what we have had from Mick for this game has been absolutely phenomenal, so no complaints there. The music has been absolutely outstanding. So let's move on to the most important part of a Doom game, and that's how it plays. I'm going to start with the single player here. As you would probably expect for a Doom game, it plays phenomenally. A bit of a learning curve to begin with, honestly. It's a considerably different game to 2016. I think that may catch a lot of people by surprise. I know that it has, looking at the Steam reviews, etc. But basically, it requires you to think a lot more than Doom 2016. There's more ammo management needed, and there are a lot more tools at your disposal. So personally, I was a big fan of this switch up, as it made the game carve its own identity than being, say, Doom 2016.5, and ultimately it added to the frenetic nature of the combat. I was honestly coming out of some arenas breathless because of this game and the way that it makes all of these features kind of just mashed together in these extremely intense arenas. So yeah, I was a big fan of it personally. I can completely understand from other people's perspectives, however, if they weren't, and I know that one of my friends who was a big Doom 2016 fan says that he prefers 2016 because of its more simplistic nature, and I can completely respect that. But for me, I really enjoyed everything that was added in here, and I really appreciated the effort that id went through to make this game different to Doom 2016. I will say that pacing in certain earlier levels was a bit of a problem. It felt too much like a 50-50 split between platforming and combat for me, whereas what I would have preferred personally was more of like a 70-30 split, let's say, between the combat and the platforming. But other than that, all the way through the game, it's about 10 hours. I was hooked from beginning to end. It was absolutely outstanding. So yeah, nothing to really complain about beyond what I just mentioned there with those little nitpicks. Moving on to multiplayer then, Doom Eternal this time around has a different take on multiplayer, and this is being called Battle Mode. Unfortunately for me, Battle Mode got old quite quick. It's a blast to play with friends from time to time, but honestly it doesn't really have an awful lot of staying power. It didn't really feel an urge to jump on by myself, play as a Slayer or play as a Demon, and keep playing beyond a game or two. I can see the appeal behind it, but ultimately I wasn't that fussed personally. It really is a bit of a shame to me that Doom 2016's multiplayer components weren't reviewed and re-implemented. I know that the multiplayer got a little bit of a bad rap from Doom 2016, but honestly there were some parts of that game that were actually quite fun, and I'm a little bit disappointed to see that something like Doom Deathmatch, some capture the flag modes, maybe something along those lines, wasn't actually incorporated in here, because I think that the game has the potential to really make use of those kinds of different gameplay styles within multiplayer. So fingers crossed, id Software take a look at this and potentially patch this in at a later date, and if not, in the next Doom game, I'd be happy to keep Battle Mode, and I hope that it stays and it gets iterated upon. But I also want to see those Doom multiplayer components from Doom 2016 also get carried through and iterated on and improved on. Let's go over how replayable the single player and multiplayer components are now then. So in terms of single player value for Doom Eternal, the campaign is decently long and for the most part it's very well paced, so I think there's some good replay value there, especially if you play on the lower difficulty, you found it a little bit easy and you want to challenge yourself. Ultra Nightmare is quite a tough difficulty, it's quite challenging, but Nightmare is, as it suggests, an absolute nightmare. And for those of you masochists out there, by all means feel free to give Ultra Nightmare a go, where if you die, that's it, start again. I'm not going to be doing that myself because I'm not insane. So yeah, that option is there. So it offers a decent amount of replayability from that perspective. Multiplayer, it's not the strong point of this game, and in terms of replayability, which is what we're talking about right now, as I said, battle mode's good fun, gets old kind of quickly. You may dig it, you may be one of the few that I think are still playing right now. I believe that the numbers that are playing it have dropped considerably, but yeah, ultimately from that perspective, I think the multiplayer is the weaker portion of this game. The game does have decent mod support already in Nexus mods, but it doesn't really add anything in terms of content right now, as you would expect. That DLC will be coming in the future. So yeah, I think the game is decently replayable from a single player perspective. Multiplayer wise, not fussed, I'm not gonna lie, and the mods are decent from a cosmetic and general customizability perspective. So overall, do I think that the game offers good value for money? Yeah, honestly I do. I think that the asking price on the PS4, the Xbox and the PC of about 50 quid, I believe, at the time of recording, is definitely well worth it from a single player value alone. Multiplayer, I don't think, like I said, you're going to get an awful lot out of it. But yeah, in terms of what's actually here as a package, I think that it's well worth £50 altogether. Let's go over some PC specifics then before I wrap this up. So how well does it run? If you've played Doom 2016, you know that id Software know how to optimize their engine to run like butter. This does just that once again. I have no complaints here whatsoever. It runs superbly well on modern hardware, and even if you run a mid-range PC, if you run it at 1080p, you're going to be able to max this out for the most part, I think. So yeah, no complaints there. Field of view, you can get that classic Doom fishbowl FOV if you really want to, the super wide field of view. You can have it as narrow as you want as well for the most part, so yeah, absolutely no complaints there either. Aspect ratios, 21:9 is supported, as is all the other standard ratios, so all looks good there. Keyboard and mouse support is excellent all around. Feels like it was built for the PC first and foremost. You can keybind anything you want basically. So yeah, in terms of a PC specific game, I'm very happy with the package here. So with all that said, it's time to give this game a rating. Straight up, I'm going to go ahead and give Doom Eternal a thoroughly deserved 9 out of 10. Single player is an absolute thrill ride of adrenaline and testosterone, ripping and tearing for the best part of 12 hours, which was possibly more on Nightmare difficulty. For me personally, this was a significant step up over Doom 2016, which was, until now, my favourite first-person shooter of this generation. Unfortunately, multiplayer wears thin a little bit quickly despite the unique concept, and the game only really drops a point here because it feels like a missed opportunity to not include the standard Doom Deathmatch and other classic modes in this package. Thanks for watching this review, everyone. If you liked the review, please leave a like on the video, leave a dislike if you didn't like the content, and subscribe if you want to see any future reviews. Please leave any comments below if you'd like to share your opinion or if you have some feedback for me. I'll go ahead and leave the playlist at the top left if you want to watch any further game reviews from 2020 so far. Thanks again for watching, everyone, and I'll see you in the next review.